you ever done anything bad?
When I was young, I did something bad. Unforgivable. There was this man, and he was handsome, charismatic, and he noticed me. But I guess I wasn't as tough as we thought.
What happened?
Nothing. I just feel a bit off. Go away.
Are you speaking to me?
Stay away from me and my kid.
Okay, you are mistaking me for someone else.
I know him. I know what he's capable of.
I've missed you so much. The life we made was perfect.
Come after me. Come after my child. I swear to God, I will kill you. He wants to hurt us. But I won't let that happen.
I think you're having an episode.
I'm the only one that can see you. The only person that really knows who you are.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the latest episode of Fresh Cuts. This is Mike. Joining me, as always, it's Mr. Venom. What's up, Venom? How are you?
Greetings and salutations, narcissists. Yeah, I'm doing pretty well, Mike. How the hell you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm living in a kid-free home right now for another few days, so it's kind of nice to be able to just relax after work and not worry about much else.
Yes, it is.
All right. Also with us, it's Don and Nelly. How are you, Don?
Yeah, what's going on? Always great to be here.
Cool. Well, so for this week's episode, there was a little bit of a mix-up because we were planning to do Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. Did not realize that the first week of release was limited, and then it opens wide this coming up week. So we just had to move it a week. It's not the case where it's like limited and gone. It just had to move it a week. So I think we were caught a little bit off guard. So we were kind of like searching around for something, and I kind of knew of this movie.
It was kind of weird because this is kind of like the one weekend where there was like 7 or 8 titles that we could have chosen and been reasonably they would have been like obvious choices for us to cover. Because I think there was like 6 or 7 that we were chatting about as like, okay,
yeah.
What about this one? What about this one? Well, this one releases this week. This one releases this week, and it's like, yeah, we probably could have picked. We could have reasonably had like 3 or 4 different titles that we could have chosen.
Yeah, and like as I was going down one, it was like a matter of like, okay, which streaming service is it on? How are we going to get a hold of it? 2, a lot of them were just getting mediocre reviews, which doesn't always necessarily make me not want to, because I'm still going to watch everything that I have time for anyway, but it's sometimes you're prioritizing different stuff. When the reason I kind of suggested this one was purely, I guess, off 2 things. One, it was kind of like psychological thriller leaning, and 2, the cast, Rebecca Hall and Tim Roth, to me was like, okay, I know I'm gonna want to watch it. Initially I didn't even know if we were gonna do it on the show just because of other movies, but it just kind of fell into place. So that movie is titled Resurrection, just released, and let's see the IMDb synopsis. Margaret's life is in order. She is capable, disciplined, and successful. Everything is under control. That is, until David returns, carrying with him the horrors of Margaret's past. All right, so Just time for general thoughts on the movie Resurrection. I will kick it to Venom first. Venom, let's hear your thoughts on Resurrection.
All right. Well, this is a very well-made movie. We got some competent direction from Andrew Siemens. We've got some nice music work from Jim Williams. Maybe not as good as I'm used to, because Jim Williams has actually done two of my favorite scores of the last couple of years. Those two being Brandon Cronenberg's Possessor and the wacky ass Titan from last year that none of us could really classify as either horror or action, or I think we just call it a WTF movie. But yeah, those are two of my favorite scores of the last few years. And this one is still good, but maybe not up to what I expect from Jim Williams. We've got competent cinematography from Wyatt Garfield, known more from Beasts of the Southern Wild and Porto. Beautiful performances from Rebecca Hall and Tim Roth. Obviously, when you hear those names, you're getting great performances. You don't necessarily need a AAA director to get great performances out of these two. Like I said, cinematography, good editing. Like on a technical standpoint, this is a solid movie, very well made. Now, having said all that, sounds like something I should like, right, folks? Well, wrong. I'm very sorry to have to report I fucking hate this movie. I fucking hate this movie with a fiery fucking passion. Yes, I'm sorry, but Mr. Venom from the Greta and Mother reviews will be rearing his ugly head today, because this is the worst movie watching experience I've had since Darren Aronofsky's Mother. Another movie that was critically acclaimed and, enjoyed by many genre fans that I just couldn't get behind because of it was just 2 hours of frustration and poor decision making and whatever else. And here it's just the same thing. It's just such a frustrating journey. There are so many plot holes in this movie. When you're done watching this movie, you're going to have about 50 questions in your head, because that's what I had. Like, why did this happen? How did this happen? How did this not happen? Like, everything that occurs in this movie, it's like, why? And then Rebecca Hall, someone who overall I enjoy watching her play this just timid, controlled character, obviously by Tim Roth's narcissistic douchebag character David. But man, I just at every turn, I hated every decision she made. The way that she treated her daughter, the way that she didn't tell her daughter the truth, the way that she didn't tell any of her coworkers the truth, the way that just I feel like every fucking decision in this movie was just wrong. Now, I do want to say that I've never known an abused female or someone who comes from a toxic relationship in the past that maybe affected her poorly moving forward. So I can't say that this is the most unrealistic performance. No, it's still a very good performance from Rebecca Hall. I just don't agree with her character and all of her damn decision makings. Like I said, the plot points in this movie, like every single time we got a new plot point, it's like, what? Are you fucking kidding me? Is this serious? And then I will say that the ending of this film is probably the best part. It's probably the part that I enjoyed the most watching this film, but it didn't save the movie. This ending, as cool as it might be, and is up for many different types of interpretation as it may be, it did not make up for this journey. This was an hour and 45 minutes of just sheer frustration. Literally every single time Rebecca Hall's character walked barefoot to work, I'm seething. I'm on my couch fucking seething. Let me tell you, folks, if it wasn't for this review, I would have stopped watching this movie. Not because it's a bad movie, as I hope everyone is getting, that from my review. This is not a bad movie. This is just a movie that did not resonate with me, and I just want this movie to burn in hell and get the hell out of my head. So I'm done with general thoughts for now. I think I got my general thoughts across. Fuck this movie.
Okay, sounds general and specific. I'll kick it over to Dawn. What did you think of Resurrection?
Can you copy paste Venom's response into mine? I don't have much to add, but fuck this movie so hard. And I'll tell you what. I don't know if this is going to be spoilerific or not, but I gave this movie a legitimate shot. I was willing to give this a go, And right around the half-hour mark, I realized this was not going to be the film for me. Nothing was happening. Nothing was interesting. None of this was the kind of film that I'm interested in. But for the sake of the show, I powered through. I admit I was kind of glancing side to side, playing on my tablet or, doing other stuff. And then we get one of the most irritating, soul-draining, momentum-stopping monologues I've ever seen in a horror film. And at that point, I realized, one, there's nothing short of a three-way lesbian sex scene that is ever going to change my opinion on this film. There's nothing that's going to happen from here on out that's going to make me actually like this movie. And I felt that. I was genuinely sure of that was going to happen. And then I realized that this bitch is still talking. And she's still talking. And she talks some more. And I thought at this point, she's wasted 10 minutes of my life talking about an abusive relationship that could have been handled in five minutes.
Thank you.
She could have even handled this in 3 minutes. Or, even said 3 or 4 lines on the matter. So, fuck you, you self-righteous cunt. Fuck this movie.
Man.
Yeah, I'm done with this. So, if you want to know where you can find me online, but yeah.
I came very close to wanting to insult Rebecca Hall's character. I don't mind Rebecca Hall, as I've already said, but just her character in this movie is just such a useless, pointless character that I just... The performance is great. This is a weird review because as with Darren Aronofsky's Mother and It Follows and movies of the like, I still want to praise its filmmaking. It is well worth watching. And I also admit that I'm going to be in the minority on this. I was in the minority on Night House. If you guys remember Night House, I was just kind of lukewarm on it. I was like, okay. Once I realized that the Night House was just another version of Final Destination, I kind of mentally checked out and lost a little bit of interest in the movie. This one didn't remind me of anything. And I'll give the movie its credit for that. It didn't remind me of anything else I'd ever seen before, but it also doesn't have a coherent storyline that makes any kind of sense other than unreliable narrator. That's about the only explanation I could give for why this movie is so weird. So, yeah. Go ahead, Mike. Tell us why Don and I are wrong.
I think the first half of your general thoughts are correct. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think of another movie that we've done on here that puts us as polar opposite as we are on this movie. Performances I thought were great. I agree with you about the score. I feel like the score was fine. What we got sounded good, but it was very subdued. And maybe that's just because of the style of the movie. They didn't want to press too hard with the score, because there were times when I was like, oh, like the music playing in the background is kind of enhancing the scene, but it did feel very kind of like underscored almost in a way. Maybe that was deliberate though. I don't know. Let me see. I found the story coherent. Like we'll have to, a lot of this was going to have to be hashed out in spoilers, obviously, because we can't get into the details of our disagreements, but what else? I think obviously with a movie like this, they're going to take like, I guess, like the extreme example of post like abusive relationship. In today's discourse out there in the world, the term groomer gets thrown around a lot for a lot of incorrect reasons, but I think as we're learning more, I think there's an example of that going on in the relationship, to where by the time we're in modern, well, not by the time, where the movie takes place in modern time, but with everything that's going on in the present, I'm pretty sure her head is so fucked from what happened in that relationship that I don't find a lot of what she does unrealistic. Now, I acknowledge it's to the extreme. Like, these aren't your garden variety cases of the post relationship thing. And even with that said, I don't even 100% feel comfortable espousing on that because we don't really have anyone representative on our cast right now to like challenge that, right? I mean, the three of us can be like, well, I don't know any personal experience with that, but it's like, could we find someone to come on in here and push back on that? Maybe. So let's just say from our experiences, it seems like a pretty extreme case. But with that said, I mean, I still was able to follow along. I did kind of look up different theories afterwards because I do think, there is some gray area with the story, what's real, what's not, as far as the unreliable narrator aspect of it. When you said it didn't remind you of any movies, at first I thought, okay, this is remind me a little bit of Men, but that went away, and I came away more relating elements of this to The Lodge, if everyone remembers that movie, a little bit of the headspace of what was going on in that movie, because I think there's specific triggers in this movie, starting with the opening scene, which we can get into, obviously under spoilers, but it's funny because Venom, you said you were kind of in the minority. I don't necessarily think you're going to be in the minority as far as people liking the movie or not, maybe just for different reasons. But I mean, I was like halfway through the movie and I'm like, this is not going to be a movie for everyone. It's probably going to split audiences because when it comes to these kind of like psychological thrillers where there's like implied stuff versus like kind of is stuff in person's head, when you're trying to, wade through all that kind of territory, it definitely splits audiences. So I wouldn't say you're wrong or you're in the minority whether you like it or not. Just maybe it'll be for different reasons for different people, because it sounds like you're acknowledging the performances themselves in a vacuum you thought were good, just maybe it didn't all go together well or come out with a good final product. It sounds like what you're saying.
It's not the final product necessarily. In fact, the final product is pretty good as far as, like I said, the technical aspects, the filmmaking, the editing, things like that. It looks beautiful. I have no issues with it visually. It's the storytelling. I hate this story. I can't stand this story. And if the story resonated more with you than it did with me, then awesome. I'm glad you enjoyed it more than I did. But I can't stress enough that this was an hour and 44 minutes of just sheer frustration. I mean, I paused it multiple times because I just felt my blood pressure going up. I've said this before on the show and I'll say it again. Movies are entertainment first and foremost, before anything, before their art, before they're anything. They are entertainment. They are intended to entertain us, to pass the time. This was an hour and 44 minutes of just my heart rate getting higher, my blood pressure rising, me yelling at a TV screen, which I never genuinely, I don't really do that often. I'm usually incredibly quiet when I watch movies, but when I'm talkative through the whole movie, I know I hate the movie. And I was just yelling at every character in this movie. I mean, even the daughter, who didn't really overtly have anything hateable about her, but just something about her even rubbed me the wrong way. And it's probably more because of the mom's relationship and how she treated her daughter and the attitude that she had. But I found myself not liking one character in this movie in any way, shape, or form as a victim or a villain. I don't know. On top of the fact that I'm shocked that at this point neither Don or I have said that this isn't a horror movie. I mean, it's just flat out not a horror movie. Psychological thriller is the perfect title, especially once you see that ending. To me, it's just 100% psychological, but that's just me. I know there's going to be varying interpretations, but yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it definitely leans towards that way. I mean, there's maybe one scene that you could say they threw in some like body horror stuff, but
I mean, even that was done better in Men, though.
Yeah, that scene wasn't shot in the context of a horror film. Like, if that exact same scene is shot in the context of like a Texas Chainsaw or Friday the 13th, it's going to be shot very differently. It's going to be much more visceral. This one here, it's almost artistic, which I'm not going to complain about that in and of itself, but just the context of that final scene just irks the shit out of me. Pretty much like every scene in this movie irks the shit out of me. So yeah, there you go.
All right. Well, I'm trying to think what else, because I think we kind of, as far as keeping it more vague, I think we've gone over The
Well,
differences.
yeah, say as much positive as you can, Mike, because I think all the positive aspects of this review are going to be coming from you. So, I mean, anything you got at all, spit it out.
Well, see, the thing is, it's like I don't really disagree with what you actually said. I just disagree with the entertainment value in it. Like I don't find frustrating stories or frustrating characters not entertaining. I just feel like, well, that's a story they're trying to tell with a fucked up or a mentally fucked up character. So that's what you're gonna get. I mean, if you just don't like stories where the person's fucking up through an hour and whatever this was, 40 minutes of the film, then it's going to be hard for them to tell this story in a way you like it, unless like there's like a big redemption arc, which I think they're just depicting like, no, there isn't necessarily, which we can kind of get into, more in spoilers, but that's just a personal preference thing, I guess. And I think you're acknowledging that too, because you've already reiterated like you don't find it to be bad. It's just for your personal entertainment factor, you don't get entertainment out of that. Where to me, I just see the performances and the power of that, and I'm like, I'm entertained with the story they're trying to tell. If it's frustrating, hey, that's the kind of thing they wanted to tell, and I'm on board with it. As long as it's good. I mean, there's shitty movies that do this too, and I will call those bad movies. But if it's well executed and well done, and they're trying to do, and that's what they're trying to do, then I'm gonna judge it on what they're trying to do.
Absolutely. I mean, I want to cut him some slack, obviously, because it is a good-looking movie and it is getting good reviews overall. When I said I'm going to be in the minority, I think I'm going to be in the minority on hating this movie. I mean, there's going to be plenty of people that dislike it or maybe don't like it very much. I hate this movie, people. I can't stress enough how much I hate this movie. Just sitting here thinking about the hour and 45 minutes I spent with it is just boiling my blood. I found no entertainment out of this. It's funny because, I mean, you could take a movie like Piercing that also has kind of a toxic relationship between two people, and that movie is head and shoulders above this one, so much better in both its storytelling and its culmination, which even after we reviewed it, I had a little bit of an issue with that ending, but after watching it in the months since then, I understand the ending a little bit more, and I understand kind of the messaging behind it. This movie, I'm sure there's a moral or a message that Andrew Siemens, the director, is going for. I don't know what the fuck it is. And, same thing with Darren Aronofsky. What the hell was his intention with Mother, other than making me feel like I got slapped in the face with a large print King James Bible as I'm walking into the theater? And thankfully this movie is not Christian, biblical, whatever, because that stuff's even more infuriating to me. But with this, I just, like, every single goddamn decision she makes in this movie, I'm like, why? And then the scene in the park, I know we all know what I'm talking about. The scene in the park, she fucking chickens out. I'm like, after what this man fucking did to you 22 years ago, you're gonna fucking puss out? I'm sorry, this fucking woman is frustrating. Fuck you for not defending your child more vigorously, and also fuck you for not trusting your adult child. Granted, she's only 17, but she's less than 2 weeks away from her 18th birthday. So she is your adult daughter, and you can't trust her with the truth that affects her fucking life. I'm sorry, but I watch this movie and it's just frustration after frustration after frustration. And though the ending was mildly entertaining, it did not save this movie for me. So yeah, I wanted to like this movie so much because I feel like I've been shitting on Rebecca Hall movies a lot over the last few years, and I don't have a problem with her. I legitimately don't have a problem with her. I think she's a fine actress. I love seeing her in genre films, but it just seems like none of the genre films that she's done have ever been, amazing to me. Whereas to the general public, Rebecca Hall is like, I wouldn't go so far as to say scream queen, but she's definitely being looked at as an indie darling and, like a festival darling too, because obviously 2 years ago with The Night House, and then last year her directorial debut played at festivals, and then of course this year with this movie. The indie scene loves this woman, and I want to love her too. I do. It's like everyone speaks so positively of her, and I have nothing negative to say about Rebecca Hall, the actress, of course. Don't ever get anything I say twisted. I'm talking about this idiotic character that she played, that I understand that she's been abused. She's been in a toxic relationship. Her mind, it maybe isn't where it needs to be. I totally understand all this, but to make just terrible decision after terrible decision after terrible decision, and then to let this guy get back into your head after you escaped from his ass 22 years ago, and to just let him waltz right. I mean, this is just clear narcissistic gaslighting throughout this entire movie. And I like Tim Roth. See, Tim Roth is one that I'm going to complain about because I fucking love Tim Roth generally. And even though his performance here was good, it was so good that you just end up hating him. And I don't know. I'm sorry, folks. I'm having trouble putting my words together. This happens. I'm all flustered because I fucking hate this movie.
You're in a blind rage.
Yeah, thank you. I'll go with that. Maybe not quite blind. I've been in bigger rages than this by far, but because, like I said, I want to be as objective as possible. I genuinely do. It's difficult for podcasters and movie reviewers in general to be objective, but I try to be as objective as possible. Yes, this is a good-looking movie. It's very well made. It's a solid film that I think most people, especially fans of psychological thrillers, are going to enjoy. So don't let my review of it kind of, make you want to ignore it. If you're a fan of that style, if you're a fan of psychological thrillers with good performances, great performances even, then this might be the movie for you. Unfortunately, it's not the movie for me.
Yeah, I mean, that's
here.
fair enough.
I think my general thoughts when I was watching this was, it's a technically well accomplished display of nothing interesting.
Thank you. It could have been interesting, though, especially with the accusations that she was making about the guy. Like, I was mildly interested, I will say, in the first act, when we first get her ridiculous 15-minute diatribe about her toxic relationship. And I'm right there with you, Don. I wanted her to shut up so much during that whole thing. It's like, are you done? Are you done? Are you done? It's like, how long does it take to say I was married to this guy and we had issues? Boom, done. Instead, she tells a 15-fucking-minute story that I don't give a rat's ass about, sadly. I love backstory. I love lore and, hearing, stories of the past involving characters in a movie that I'm watching. I love that kind of shit. Here, I was just thoroughly bored, literally crying for her to finish. Just please stop talking. Oh, my God. I'm sorry, folks. Just... anything else you guys need to say before we get into our spoilers?
I'm good.
Nah, because anything else is probably going to involve spoilers. It's kind of hard. Like, I think I've tried to give the opposite perspective as best I could without, start going through actual details like, hey, well, this is why I think this and that and the other. So, yeah, I mean, I would just say, yeah, people, it's on VOD. I would say that if anything, here's my final general thoughts. I won't say plea to the listeners, but my perspective. Anytime a movie divides people this much, I would say now go check it out even more, because you got to see where you fall. And you might fall somewhere in between. It doesn't mean like you're going to, hit up a comment thread and be like, oh, I 100% agree with so-and-so over so-and-so. Maybe you'll be like, oh, well, I fall somewhere in between, like liking it and being frustrated with it. Like, that's perfectly acceptable too. But I'm just interested because sometimes with VOD we get caught up talking about something that's like been out for a few weeks, but this one is relatively new as far as access to people goes. So I haven't heard like many people talk about it. And it had the unfortunate I guess circumstance of releasing when a bunch of other stuff did. That's probably like more widely known, possibly, I don't know, but I haven't really heard that many people talk about it, period, except critics. So I am kind of interested to see, once this kind of gets around to more people, what they start saying about it, because I honestly have no idea. I could see it going either way.
I fully anticipate it going the way of The Night House. I think the more people see it, the more people are going to praise it. Especially like the non-hardcore horror fans that maybe just dabble in the genre every now and again. This is definitely going to be the type of movie that they get into. Um, I don't really see any difference between this and The Night House as far as quality, performances, filmmaking prowess, things like that. So that's the only reason I'm going with that, because like I said, I didn't hate The Night House. I had issues with it. I enjoyed it overall, but it definitely wasn't like any close to my favorite of the year. Whereas this one, legitimately, as of right now, is in my top 5 worst of the year, which is a fucked up turn, because I don't want to say this is the worst movie of the year, because objectively it's not. There are so many movies that are worse than this, but I'm going by my personal experience watching the film, because I can watch a bad movie. All of our regular listeners know how much Don and I love The Asylum. We can watch bad movies and enjoy them.
I've seen films that would actually make Asylum look like A24, so let's not go praising them.
No, absolutely. But
yeah.
The point is that I don't even know what the hell my point was.
We have a taste for trash, and this isn't. We have a taste for trash, and this is not it. So us placing it on the bottom of the year list is not indicative of being trash.
Very true, but I also love Saint Maud, so I'm a weird character. I do love my elevated art house indie horror, whatever you want to fucking call it. I'm a huge fan of it, and this movie, it should solidly fall in that subgenre, and it just doesn't entertain me. I just, like I said, I can watch a bad movie and laugh at it. That's the thing. I can watch a bad movie, still have a good time with it, appreciate what little talent is in the film. I can still appreciate what's in the film, what little talent there is in there. This movie is loaded with talent, both behind and in front of the camera, and I just can't stand this story. So it's really just hit or miss with me, I do love my indie art house horror. I legitimately do. But this just didn't cut it for me. Like I said, I mean, the whole movie just felt like a thriller. It just felt like your basic toxic relationship thriller. Personally, I think Men is way better than this movie, and Men wasn't shy about its allegory in any way, shape, or form. So, I appreciate that aspect of it, along with the good storytelling and decent effects and, bonkers ass ending. But yeah, this movie just did so little for me. It's just unfortunate. That's all. Especially because I was supposed to watch Bodies this weekend, but I postponed since my co-hosts aren't able to see it this weekend. I decided to wait, and now I regret it.
I was wondering, because you were originally going to go, and I thought, maybe he's going to go and he'll just watch it again before next week.
That's what I was planning on doing, but when I got up Saturday morning, I ended up getting up a little late. I literally woke up about a half hour before the movie started, and if you know me, I hate rushing. I hate speeding, I hate doing any of it. And since it's AMC, since it's the AMC Premiere Plus or whatever, I'm not paying for the ticket anyway. So I just decided, fuck it. I just blew it off. I planned on going, like I said, but yeah, just I had a bad poker weekend too, so I didn't have as much dispensable income as I'd like as well. So
because of your location, is it a situation where pretty much like every showing of everything is like amply filled, like not a full house theater, but is it like always going to be like at least half full, like no matter what?
Not always.
Or is there times where it's like pretty empty? Okay.
I go to the movies during like as early as possible most days. Like I'll go to the first showing on Saturdays and Sundays. It's more because of the fact that Mrs. Venom and I share a car and she works nights. So I if I want to go to the theater, I have to do it in the morning. That or take an Uber in the evening, which I'm not going to pay $30 to go see a $20 movie. Anyway.
Yeah, right.
Exactly. So I tend to watch my movies earlier in the day. I will say I did watch Nope on opening night. That's the first opening night movie I've gone to in probably since before the pandemic. That used to be the standard thing for me when my wife and I each had a car. I always went opening night to any movie I wanted to see, but now I have to wait till Saturday or Sunday. Not that I'm complaining, but yeah, when I saw Nope on Friday night, it was packed. It was sold out. Every seat was taken. But then when I saw it Sunday morning, it was about half full, and that's opening weekend. So take from that what you will.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I like to see movies early too, early first showing. As long, because they don't start till like 10:30, 11, so it's plenty of time to sleep and all that.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyways,
especially on weekend.
Yeah, well, no, now that everyone knows our theatrical schedule, yeah. So yeah, I think I was pretty much wrapped up on general thoughts,
All right.
and we can get into spoilers now.
All right.
So that's your warning,
final
people.
spoiler.
And I
Yep.
highly recommend watching this first. Hopefully
this
not
is
to your
definitely a
detriment,
movie-
but
Uh-huh.
I was gonna say hopefully not
like
to
I
their
said,
detriment. Hopefully they'll be happy about it, but
Yeah. Like I said, I think more people are. I genuinely believe more people are going to like this movie than I did. A lot of people are going to like this movie more than I did, and that's cool. That's fine. I'm never going to give anybody shit for their movie opinions. But yeah, I really wanted to like this and I couldn't. So, like I said, as Mike just said, that's your final spoiler warning. We will get into our little bit of a walkthrough. I'm sure you'll notice that when I dislike a movie, the walkthrough is not nearly as long. So enjoy the short walkthrough, folks. Our movie opens up with Rebecca Hall's character, Margaret. Everybody calls her Maggie. It looks like she's some type of therapist. She's having a therapy session with a coworker. She's talking about how she's being abused in her relationship. We don't learn much about Rebecca Hall's character, Margaret, at this point. We actually hear more about her coworker and her abuse and her toxic boyfriend and things like that. Later on, we find out that Margaret has a daughter, 17-year-old.
I didn't think she was a therapist, was she? I thought she was just like a boss in the office.
But why would she be doing that session? At that first scene was very much a therapy session. That wasn't.
Well, I thought it was just a coworker, like I guess
it could have been
subordinate, just oversharing like people do.
There's too many later conversations the two have for her to be anything more than a therapist. They keep going back to her several times.
And then even when she was in that one meeting, that one conference, she was talking about medical stuff. So she's some kind of, I don't know. She's got something to do with the medical field, because in the one conference call that we saw her on in the meeting with those people, she was talking about medical stuff. So, maybe she's not a therapist, but I don't know.
Because like when she comes out of her office,
it didn't seem
the
like
floor
that
plan
girl
looks like
and
a
Margaret.
general office. It doesn't look like.
You're right. You're absolutely right. But it's not like the therapist has a couch. They're not psychiatrists necessarily, just therapy. Anyway, like I said, maybe she's not a therapist, but that's just another fucking plot hole for the movie. Why the hell? Because these two, they're not like friends. They're legitimately coworkers. They're boss and subordinate. Yet they have all these heart-to-hearts. They have at least 3 heart-to-hearts in the span of this movie. And it's like, but nothing about them comes off like they're friends. Like they don't have friendly chit-chat. You know what I mean? I don't know.
No,
I'm probably wrong, and that's fine. I can accept that, but it's just more fucking plot hole.
So to me, the opening scene is really what kicks everything off and what triggers her psychosis. Now, here's the thing. I mean, we're probably not going to hear anything from people about it, but I just want to make it clear. I'm not a doctor. I'm not trying to actually diagnose. If I refer to like something someone might have incorrectly, my bad. I don't know. I'm just using like generalized terms. So when I say, this triggered her psychosis, maybe it's not technically psychosis. It's some type of trauma that she obviously has in her head. But I think the purpose, because it's like, why even have that opening scene? I think because obviously and this is getting into things we learn later, but I want to speak on it now because I think it's important about this opening scene, is obviously she has trauma she went through. Obviously she's tried to suppress it. She has a daughter. She's raising her. For all we know, at the beginning, it's like a normal mother-daughter. But I think this conversation with the coworker is what triggers it, because the coworker is talking about leaving, talking about a bad relationship, and that's what starts to trigger, because we hear later on hear later on the daughter said, "I think you're having an episode." So that would
that's after
that would indicate that No, but I'm just saying that indicates that she has a history of this. This isn't the first time that she's started
we're just talking about the opening
behaviors.
scene. We don't know shit about Margaret at this point. We don't know that she's
No,
that
I
she's
no, I
has
know.
experience.
No, we don't.
Right.
No, we don't know this right now. But I'm saying when you look at
That's why I'm
the,
saying I think she's a therapist, because why would she be having this conversation with just a coworker without the
well, she's calling
coworker
her
knowing
boss.
she's
So why
past
would the
experience?
she says she first refers to her as a boss though, her boss, not.
Right,
So
yeah,
I don't think a
I'm
therapy.
okay with that.
Yeah, but why would a therapist can't? You can't. Well, I don't.
Well, I mean, she could be
I don't know.
HR.
I don't know if she's just breaking the rules because she is who she is, but I don't. I mean, wouldn't that be like some type of violation? Just sit there and drone on about like your messed up relationship. I mean, it seems like it's a boss relation, like a boss employee relationship, not a therapist patient relationship that they're having, right?
I mean, okay. I will agree to you, my friend, because like I said, I care so little about this movie. I don't care if I'm wrong, honestly.
Yeah, I mean,
she is definitely,
I think
100% in the medical field. We can all agree on that.
yeah. Let's just put like this as the one defender of the movie. That's the kind of stuff I'm gonna like lean on to try to justify why I like the movie more than you guys. So if I bring up like things that I find
this is what I mean.
Then...
The journey is frustrating. Yeah, we get explanation later. But if you're just so goddamn frustrated and sick of this movie, by the time you get to the explanation, no level of explanation is going to make up for this journey. You know what I mean? This is where I'm coming from. An hour into this movie, I was ready to quit. I did not want to watch any. I literally had zero interest in any of the characters in this movie, the story, all of it. And that's not the norm for me. Like I said, I don't just check out of movies. I enjoy all movies, good movies, bad movies, in between movies. I like enjoy watching them all. And the fact that I can only say the 3 films that I've had terrible experiences with over the last 5 years, I think that's a pretty good average. Only 3 movies have pissed me off to no end over the last 3 years. Mother, Greta, and now this one. I think I'm batting pretty good. For whatever it's worth. It's just that when it does happen, I'm going to be vocal about it. Because if any of you guys out there tend to kind of agree with my interpretation of movies and, you know, my reviews and things like that, then hopefully I will save you an hour and 44 minutes because, you know, if you're more aligned with me, I don't know that you're going to enjoy this movie.
Yeah, see, the big difference is I agreed with you about Greta being pretty mediocre, bad. Mother, I think I think I liked it more than you, but I agreed that a technical marvel with a pretty one-note story, like it was just a straight. It was I almost wouldn't even call it an allegory. It was just a literal interpretation on screen almost. But this is the movie that the difference is with Resurrection is like you don't like it, but I actually do like it. Like I'm not even like middle of the road on. I like really like it, so that's why I'm offering up a bigger defense, I guess, than the other ones.
Please. You can defend it all day long. I can guarantee there's nothing you can say that's going to change me or Don's mind about it. It's just we've experienced the movie. We've experienced all we want to experience with this movie. No amount of I'm not exaggerating here. At no point in my life has anybody sat me down to talk about a movie that I hated and then changed my mind about it. It's never happened. I may soften on the movie. I might start saying nicer things about it, but the overall feeling on the film almost never changes. You know,
I understand that. This isn't to convince you or Dawn. This is more to give the listeners like both perspectives of like, someone who dislikes it versus someone who likes it. So I'm just giving the why I liked it versus why you disliked it kind of thing. Right. I don't expect like at the end of this you're going to be like, you know what, I love it.
No, I understand that, but like I said, you're moving ahead to explanations that we don't have yet in the opening scene. So this is why I'm scratching my head in the opening scene. Like, if this isn't a therapist, patient in relationship, this is an awful open conversation for a boss to have with a subordinate. And like I said, the main reason I say this is because they do not look like they have a relationship in this movie. They are not friendly. They don't say hi in the hall. They don't go to each other's houses. Do you know what I mean? That's the reason I'm questioning this whole thing. You could be 100% right, Mike. You may be 100% right, and that's fine. And hopefully other people out there listening will agree with you more because, obviously I want people to enjoy their time watching movies. And if people listening to my voice right now end up watching this movie and loving it, awesome. I'm so happy for you. I genuinely am. But just this movie did not resonate with me. And like I said, as we go through this walkthrough, I will be very vocal about all the different issues that I had. And I'm sure Mike will counter those issues with what he felt. And it's up to you guys to decide who's closer to what you're going to think about the movie. Because it's not about right and wrong, obviously. It's about your enjoyment. Do you side more with Mike? Do you side more with Mr. Venom? Is this something that you're going to enjoy? Maybe you like movies I hate. Who knows? In that case, I'm still doing a service to the listeners. So rock on.
The only thing you forgot to say is vote in November accordingly. For Mike or Venom on Resurrection.
There you go. All right. So like I said, we've been introduced to Margaret, her co-worker Gwen. They are having a little back and forth conversation about a toxic relationship that Gwen is currently in. After that conversation, we follow Margaret home. We see that she has a 17-year-old daughter who's already making plans to kind of go away and be independent as soon as she turns 18. And then the big catalyst for this movie, this is where I disagree with Mike. Like Mike says that this conversation in the cold open is kind of the catalyst for what happened to Margaret. I'm going to say no. I'm going to say the vision of David, the sight of him, I should say, is what triggered this whole thing, because she seemed fairly on the ball before David showed up. As soon as he shows up, she literally turns into a panicky, anxiety-filled, just crackpot, like literally running around the city, sweating her ass off for weird reasons, So anyway, we'll get into all that. So like I said, we got our daughter. One day while Margaret is out and about, she runs, or actually she's at a conference. She's at a conference, and she notices a man that looks very familiar to her. When the man turns around, it's very obviously Tim Roth, and then she reacts incredibly, anxiously, like literally in the middle. She as soon as she sees David, she starts freaking out and having a panic attack. She ends up running out of the class, literally leaving her personal items, doesn't grab her coat, her purse, nothing. She just runs out of that place. And the first thing I'm thinking about is, well, wait a minute. If there's a guy that's going to elicit this kind of reaction from you, how is there not a restraining order? That's my first plot hole of the movie. This just doesn't make any fucking sense, that once we find out what Tim Roth, what David did to Margaret 22 years earlier, it's like, what? You literally didn't call the police, didn't pull a bullet in his brain the moment you saw him. I don't know. I'm not a parent, so, again, I'm not going to pretend I know what a parent would do, but I'd like to think that if I had a child that I thought was in danger because of what my ex did 22 years ago, there's no thought process there. I am putting a bullet in his fucking brain before he gets anywhere near my daughter. And guess what? If I got to go to jail, I'll go to jail and spend the rest of my life with a smile on my face, knowing that he's not walking the earth. That's just me. Let's move on. So, she has this panic attack. She ends up leaving work, going home to make sure that her daughter is safe. What's the daughter? Abby. Abby knows that there's something wrong with her mother right away. She's sweating. She's freaking out. I mean, she looks like she had an anxiety attack, but of course, Margaret plays it off. No, it's fine. I just, some troubles at work or whatever. Nothing major. Later on, while she's at I believe a restaurant of some kind, she sees David walk in, and again, she kind of freaks out.
Diner.
And then
you're talking about that. Okay, never mind. Different part.
And then we have a third altercation. This is the third time that Margaret sees David is in a park. David is just sitting at a bench. Mind you, at this point, David hasn't even looked in her direction. So, there's that tiny little bit that in the back of your head thinking, oh, well, maybe she's mistaken. This actually isn't the guy, or blah, blah, blah. But,
Or
obviously,
what's the other option?
I don't know.
That the modern day David doesn't exist at all.
That's valid. That's what I was
she's all fucked up.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking
because
about.
when you were talking about, there'd be a bullet in his head, if he was cited, I would say yes, a rational person, a rational thinking person in defense of her daughter would probably do that. But I think she's so fucked up that there's a reason she doesn't want to do it, which we find out later through his dialogue, where the shit that's coming out of his mouth to one of us is like, what the like, who in their right mind would believe what he's saying? But I think that goes back to how messed up she is because of whatever the hell happened in that relationship, that she actually believes that shit, and that's why she can't do it.
I don't know. It just doesn't make sense to me. If she believes that David did what he claims to have done, I just don't I don't understand how a mother doesn't defend her child to the death. Like, obviously, there's no saving. I'm getting a little spoilery, but we are in the spoiler section. You know, I don't know.
It's not just because, okay, I'll put it like this. If it was just about only her daughter in the equation, I guess I would agree more. But there's another character in the equation that we haven't got to yet that we will, that in this fucked up bubble world that he created with her by, you know, all whatever sick methods, she believes it because during one of her, I think the story she'll tell later on, she literally says, he got me so good, I just believe everything that came out of his mouth. So when she starts, well, he is, yeah, exactly.
He's a narcissist that can't handle the fact that she left him, and it took him 22 years to find her after she went and moved to another country. But this is what I mean. It's like you're physically running from someone, and then you find them, and your first thought is to just, you know, yell at them, or I don't know. Like the police were never involved, which really bothered me. Not just in present day, but also 22 years earlier, which I'll get to in a little bit here. Actually, I'll get to in like 5 minutes. Okay. So at this point, like I said, the third altercation, she basically says, "Why are you here?" David actually plays dumb at first. He's like, "I'm sorry, ma'am. I don't know who you are. My name's not David." He changes that story literally in about 10 seconds when she makes an accusation about their son. Apparently they had a son. We're finding this out for the first time now, that apparently they were together and they had a son. And, you know, but he's not in the picture. So, you know, obviously puzzle pieces are starting to come together in the viewer's head. I literally was thinking that David was some kind of cult leader at first, just because of the hold that he has on this woman. It's amazing that one man can have this kind of hold on one woman without a support system around him, like, you know, followers basically confirming his word and things like that. It's just really crazy to me. I'm not saying that it can't happen, and I will definitely not disparage any woman who has been gaslit in her life and, you know, treated poorly. Definitely not. I just, like I said, as I'm watching the movie, a 50-plus-year-old horror movie fan, I am frustrated at the decisions that she's making, and I'm not even a parent. Imagine if I was a parent. I'd be even more pissed off right now, I think. Anyway, let's get back to it.
I also think there's more to it, too, because when she confronts him in the park, she's adamant about staying away from her daughter, but she never says the daughter's name. And then eventually he responds and says, "Oh, I wouldn't. It has nothing to do with Abby." Or like he says the daughter's name. So I'm like, something's off. That kind of made me okay. There's something off about this, which made me start.
I mean, he actually claimed that they shook hands and greeted each other, and that she told David about Abby. And it's like, what? I mean, obviously, David is trying to convince her that she's insane, that she's seeing things, or that she's not actually, I don't know, that her feelings maybe aren't valid. I mean, just it's classic gaslighting. You know, we saw it in Men. We're seeing it here. Just, you know, like I said, A1 narcissist douchebag who just can't come to terms with the fact that he lost control of this person that he had control over before. Just true narcissist piece of shit. So anyway, like I said, we have that altercation at the park. She basically ends the conversation by saying, you know, "Stay away from my daughter," blah, blah, blah. You know, and then he mentions, you know, knowing her name. You know, Mike already kind of went over that. So after this, Maggie ends up going back to work. It's after hours, so the office is, you know, dark. She's the only one in there. And then Gwen walks in and kind of asks her how she's doing, because obviously, you know, she missed a day of work the day earlier and blah, 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 because of what happened at the park. So everybody was like kind of concerned for her, but this is the scene that Don and I are just railing against, where she literally takes 10 to 15 minutes to tell this story. She talks about how David, I guess she's just trying to reiterate how much of a narcissist this guy is, because he basically they met when they were in college. She was 19. I don't remember if she mentioned how old David was. She did mention that he was a little old for her and maybe wasn't ultra interested in a relationship at first. But what David did is he worked on her parents first. He got in good with her parents, so that both of her parents absolutely loved him, so that when they actually started a relationship, it made sense to everybody. What ends up happening is they're together for I don't know how long. I'm not even sure if did they get married? I don't remember if she mentioned if they got. No, they didn't get married, right?
No, I thought she said he was like some type of philosophy professor or something, and then she was well, my parents were stupid hippies, and when I said I'm an adult and all this, they just kind of went along with it.
Exactly. Yeah. No, totally. So she's talking about, continuing with the story, and then she says that, like I said, she had a son with David. I forgot the baby's name. Was the child Ben?
I think she referred to as Benjamin, but later I might just hear the name Ben. But
yeah, you're right. There's a Ben in the credits here, so yeah. And what I guess what ends up happening is she ends up having a little bit of a mental breakdown and ends up leaving home for a little while, leaving David, her parents, and little Ben alone. And what ends up happening is she comes home and she can't find Ben. She can't find her baby, but she sees two fingers on the counter, two baby fingers. And the reveal that we get here is that David claims to have ate their son. You heard that right, folks. Literally ate their son, except for two fingers. He decided to keep those two fingers out, I guess, just to show her that he was serious, that he actually did eat the child and not just kill it and get rid of it. Honestly, I thought David was such a manipulative asshole that I thought the reveal was going to be that Ben was still alive, that he never actually ate Ben, and those fingers that she saw were just some other random fingers that David had grabbed or something. I thought that was going to be the big reveal, that he was actually still alive, but, I digress. So yeah, like I said, this is where we get this information about David, and this is where I'm just railing at this point. I'm like, are you fucking joking? This guy literally ate your fucking baby, and you don't tear his fucking eyes out the first time you see him 22 years later after you thought you escaped from him. I'm sorry, guys. I just can't. I can't with this movie. That just makes no fucking sense to me. That is that's a lack of regard for your own child. You left. No one's gonna blame you for Ben's death. Obviously you had a mental breakdown. You left home for a little while. Your husband decides to eat your child as a way to control you. And I haven't even gotten to the best part yet. David claims that Ben is still alive inside of him. Mind you, folks, this happened 22 years ago. He is claiming that he ate her child and that the child is somehow still alive inside of him. I let out such a laugh. I LOL'd in real life. I'm not even fucking kidding. I'm like, that is the dumbest shit I've ever fucking heard.
Well, there is one thing. Did we ever actually get any resolution on what happened to the kid, like police investigation or anything? Because I kind of checked out.
That's part of all of my questions.
He killed the baby.
She does not call the police. She doesn't tell her parents. She literally leaves the country. This all happened in the UK, folks, but our movie takes place in the US. So after David ate her child, she doesn't call the police. She doesn't confide in her parents. She literally leaves the fucking country. I'm sorry, people, but all you mothers out there, if your husband eats your child, you're really just going to let him get away with it? Just leave? It's just, yeah.
Well,
so already
massive
fucking plot.
Not if they're like mentally unstable and fucking already fucked up. Like that's what I'm trying to get across is she's already very much fucked up in the head before the death of the baby. That's I think the whole point of that story. And when she's like, I let it happen and I didn't do it. Like, I think, and the thing is, we think at that point okay, she's somewhat free of his hold because, she's letting that story out, and it seems like, okay, she's with it now and she understands. But then as the movie goes on, I think the point of the rest of the movie is like, she's not free from that manipulative suggestion about all his bullshit, and he still has the hooks on her. And I think from that point to the rest of the movie, including the very final scene, that's what it's showing, is like that trauma and the whatever the fuck he did to her, because obviously some of it's implied. We don't get a detailed analysis of their entire relationship, but from what we're hearing, she is still kind of in that world of a bubble of thinking for whatever reason that literally what he says is true. And that, to me, her actions the rest of the movie back that up. Now, we can call her stupid because of it, and in some extent, it's some of her actions could be questionable, but to me, I'm looking at it from the mindset that she is in, which is fucking bizarro world. So she's not operating in the same world we are, where obviously if you came home and your spouse killed your baby, yes, you're either killing them on the spot in a blind rage, or you're calling the cops. Yes, that's what a normal mentally stable person would do. But that's not her, and I think that's where I give it more leeway. I guess.
I think you're giving this movie too much of a pass by just saying, "Oh, mental health. Oh, she's crazy," or she's obviously damaged because of past trauma. So I'm going to forgive all the stupidity that she does throughout the movie. I cannot do that. She's a fucking parent. She has a child that she's caring for right fucking now. That should be her priority. That should be her fucking priority.
But it is her priority.
It is fucking not her priority. How can you watch this movie and tell me that she did everything she could for her daughter, lying to her daughter, going out all night when there's potentially a madman looking for her? No, Mike, you're cutting her way too much slack by just saying, "Oh, she's damaged."
No, but the whole thing with her now daughter is she's extremely fucking overbearing and not being in any type of reality with her daughter. The way she talks to her daughter, every little thing, you can't go out and talk to people. If a stranger approaches you, go the fuck the other way. Like, being very irrational about, hey, her daughter does have to go out in the world and live, regardless if there's a fucking, like, there's people out there that will do us harm. That's reality. But she's talking to her daughter, like her daughter's about to go off, I think, to college, right? And that's just the reality situation. But the way she's treating her daughter is like, you're unequipped. Later on, we hear like, "Oh, you didn't even teach me to ride a bike." Like, they're showing examples of how fucking crazy her mom was raising her under these crazy rules and restrictions because of how terrified she was of her daughter running into a similar person like that, because she was projecting her own fucked up past onto her daughter and saying, "I don't trust, the world to not harm you." So, that's why her daughter fucking puts her foot down. It's like, "I'm fucking leaving," because
and she had every right to.
Exactly. I agree with you, but that's what I'm saying. Like, that, I think, in a way, yes, the mama was fucked up in her upbringing of the daughter, but I don't think she was too casual with it. I think it was the opposite. She fucking basically, her home was like a prison.
I didn't say she was casual about it. You got to realize that everything that you're saying in Maggie's mind is protecting her daughter, but in no one else's mind is that protecting her daughter.
Well, it's irrational. Well, I agree. It's an irrational response to her past trauma, but that's my point. Is she's fucked up in the head this whole time. And I think what happened, like, I don't, because, we never get into whether, it sounds like she's never sought professional help, obviously, because there's different times in the movie where people suggest it and she gets overly angry. So I would also assume she's not on any kind of like psychotropic meds or anything to help deal with it. So obviously through periods of her raising her daughter, like episodes, as her daughter has referred to her, has come up where she's probably become extremely overbearing. But that doesn't mean 100% of her daughter's life she's been like that. But her daughter knows enough just from the upbringing that, "Mom, you're acting crazy and irrational and being overbearing." Now, I'm not saying it's rational. To me, it's very irrational. But I think that's all in response to her, what happened to her.
Like I said, it just doesn't make any sense. If that's how she feels, if that's the fear that she's been living in for 22 years, how does she not scratch his fucking eyes out the instant she sees him? This is what I mean. You're kind of contradicting yourself, Mike. You're saying that she's going overboard to protect her daughter, But yet when she sees the antagonist, the only thing that could pose danger to her daughter, she does nothing. That
because she's
bothers
fucked
me.
up in the head over him, and she's
again,
not over him.
you're
She's not over any of it. That's the thing.
Right, and you know how you're going to get over it? Put a fucking bullet in his head. Then you'll get over it.
But that's how a rational person would react. She's not rational. That's the thing. She's mentally unwell about all this. She can't navigate like we would. She doesn't see things like that. For whatever reason, whatever went on with that grooming process and the power of suggestion, she's unable to hurt him until we get, we'll get into something later, but she had multiple opportunities where she could have done something and she couldn't do it. Now, I'm theorizing that the current version of him isn't even there in the first place, that it's all figment of her imagination, which just further reiterates her psychosis. But even if he is physically there, and I'm just wrong about that, I think that still can play into the fact that she's a fucking mentally unwell, sick person. She's never dealt with it with professional help the way you almost pretty much have to, because, it wasn't like a one night of violence thing. This was, he had the hooks in her in every which way, and she's still, I should just let you go on, because I feel like I'm going to try to start talking about stuff that happens later in the movie before you get there. But I'm just going to say, as you're going through spoilers, to me, you're going to start laying out examples of like how she is still not mentally capable of the things that we would do in reaction.
And all I'm saying is I'm not giving her a pass for that. I'm not giving this character a pass.
Well, I'm not calling her a good
pass
character
because of the mental health issues, but I don't know. If something was causing me that much anxiety,
I'm not justifying her like, I'm not saying, well, now she's
well, you
not
kind
a
of
bad
are
person.
justifying her actions, though. You're saying that she has mental health and her mind is
well,
broken.
I'm justifying it in terms of the story they're telling, not as in whether she's a good or bad character. I'm not judging her
I'm not even
as a
talking
good or
about,
bad.
good or bad character. I'm just talking about the decisions that she has made in this movie that basically cost her daughter, potentially cost her life, because, we'll talk about that final scene that I don't really believe, but whatever. We'll get to that. I just, like I said, and I'm not talking about any one thing that Maggie does in this movie. I'm talking about the entire series of things that she's doing in this movie. The fact that she has opportunities to end this and just, hesitate so much. She's a fucking weapon dropper, which we already know how much I fucking hate weapon droppers. Though I will give her credit for what she does in the final scene. It was actually kind of ingenious, but we'll get to that. One thing that I forgot to mention during her incredibly long story about her relationship with David is that during their relationship, David would have her perform kindnesses. That's how he called them. He called them kindnesses. And Maggie explains that those kindnesses were, they started out very simple, nothing sexual, nothing crazy, just, very simple, like, whatever, have the house clean or make me a nice dinner, things like that, just little kindnesses. As the story continues, she doesn't actually get into how those kindnesses turned evil, but she does say that after a while, it turned into things that were causing her pain, causing her discomfort, and that she would just suck it up for David and for Ben as well, for her son.
Yeah, which sounds to me like it's bordering, if not full-on sadomasochism at that point. I think that's what they're alluding to.
Oh, sadist, absolutely. I wouldn't go so far as sadomasochist. David, I don't think David's a masochist. He's a sadist. Absolutely. He wants to
I'll settle for that. That's
yeah. So yeah, like I said, we find out about these kindnesses. So at one point, Maggie ends up visiting David again, going to see him, and literally he starts going on his tirade about how Ben is still alive. He's inside of me. Come, put your hand on my stomach. You could feel him. Shit that I'm laughing at the entire fucking time. And obviously she's not receptive. She's solidly in the camp that he killed her, or excuse me, that David ate Ben and that Ben is dead. I mean, she even says it multiple times in the movies. Ben is gone. You killed him. He's not in your stomach. That doesn't make any fucking sense. How can you consume a child and somehow keep him alive in your body? This is the narcissist in David coming out. He's making up any fucking story that he can come up with to get Maggie back in his life. He wants her back. This is the one of the points I'm trying to make about narcissists. You can't break up with a narcissist. They will always find a way to get you back in. And again, I'm not gonna call Maggie's character weak or anything like that, because obviously we don't know everything that she went through. Just like Mike said, we don't know everything that she went through. She told us, one version of it that, she, like I said, she just called them kindnesses. She didn't say what exactly they were. So, like I said, she confronts David. David starts talking to her and almost implying that he's threatening Abby. At one point, David even, and I forgot to mention this too, earlier in the film, Abby got into a bicycle accident. She was hit by a car on a bike, and she had this gnarly ass, like 12-inch gash on her thigh that looked like it had dozens of stitches in it. I'm sitting there like, how do you get that kind of gash from a bicycle accident? It literally looks like you jumped into a knife factory or something. It just doesn't make sense. So, but then later in the film,
knife factory.
Later in the film, David actually makes the comment to her, we don't want any more accidents to happen. Almost implying that he fucking hit Abby with the car, which would directly contradict what he's been saying. He's been saying he has no interest in Abby. The whole movie, in fact, he never really makes a move towards Abby unless he is the one that caused that bike accident. Like I said, that line kind of makes it sound, because he knows that Abby had an accident. How would he know that Abby had a bike accident? He wasn't even in the picture yet.
This is why I don't believe the present day David's actually there, because he just knows too much. It seems like it's her projecting him, and then obviously if it's her projection, she can feed any info into her projection. You know what I'm saying?
I want to believe that David's real, because if it turns out that this is just obviously we're never gonna, it's not like any of us are ever gonna sit down with the director and get a full-on explanation of this film. But
yeah,
if that was his intention, that David's not there, I hate this movie even more. I literally.
Well, I was gonna say I don't feel like my theory is rock solid at all. It's just me with the limited time I've spent with the movie trying to make it make sense in my head without
your
seeing
theory,
it again.
Your theory does hold water, because you remember nobody in the movie interacts with David other than Maggie, right? David never speaks
that's the other point
anyone else.
Make.
Yeah,
I think I meant to say it.
Your theory holds water, definitely. I'm not going to say that you're wrong. I like I said, I want to believe that David is real. I want to believe that this narcissistic piece of shit spent the last 22 years looking for this woman, finally found her, and decided, because he had no reason to move to that town. It's not like he's working. He doesn't have a job. She actually, at multiple points in the movie, she follows him around. She spends, at one point in the film, she takes a week off from work and does nothing but follow him around day and night, which is part of the reason why her daughter Abby thinks that there might be something wrong with her, because she's never home, even though she's claiming that she's at work. She's obviously not at work, blah, blah, blah. So, but yeah, just so where are we here? Okay, so now one night Maggie decides that she's finally going to do it. She's going to try to take David out. She's followed him for the last few nights. She knows that every single night at a particular time, he leaves the hotel that he's staying at, and he goes and sits at a bench underneath a bridge, kind of almost near, you folks that live in LA probably know what I'm talking about. It looked kind of like the LA River, like the edge of the LA River, where, some parts of the LA River actually have houses very close to it. So it kind of, I'm not even sure if this movie was shot in LA. It probably wasn't. I'm just saying it kind of looks that way. Anyway, the point is that this is a very isolated area with no one around. It's not like there's joggers or night walkers or anybody else in this area. She decides that she's going to take David out. So on the following evening, she's going to follow him to the park once again. And when he falls asleep on the bench, because it seems like he falls asleep on the bench, almost like he's waiting for her. I think he knows he was being followed at this point, and he's just waiting for her to make a move. So finally on this evening, she follows him. He goes to the bench. He sits at the bench. It looks like he fell asleep as usual. And then she starts to walk up to him, being very quiet. I was so mad that she didn't cock that gun before she walked up to him. Why is that so fucking difficult for movie characters? Don't cock the gun when you're about to shoot it, because they'll hear you cocking the fucking gun. For God's sakes, cock it before you walk up to your victim. This has been your murdering 101 lesson from Mr. Venom.
Yeah, I was gonna say it could be just a depiction of people who aren't familiar with handling guns. I guess because I'm not familiar with handling a gun. I would probably do shit wrong. Well, some people might buy it for some people might buy a gun for protection and put it in a box and it sits there because they just never run into the scenario where they need to use it.
And that's kind of what they imply with this movie. Absolutely. No, you're totally right. It's on her that she didn't go to a gun range maybe the day before and just shoot off a couple of bullets just so she knows what it feels like. But again, that's me, someone who actually prepares when he goes to kill someone. I'm not just going to do it willy-nilly. Anyway.
Heard it here first, folks.
Yeah, there you go. So like I said, she approaches David, who seems like he's asleep on the couch. She walked the park bench. She cocks the gun as she's approaching him. She points the gun at him, and David says, "If you kill me, you kill Ben." So obviously she wasn't sneaking up on fucking anybody. And then even though he said something, the whole time I'm yelling at the television, "Pull the trigger, pull the trigger, pull the fucking trigger, pull the fucking trigger." What ends up happening? She doesn't pull the fucking trigger, and David disarms her, gets the gun away from her. I think he claims that he threw it in the river because we never see the gun the rest of the movie. But I'm at this point, I'm so checked out of this movie. I'm so pissed off and depressed because Maggie's character is so dumb that she's making David look like a fucking genius, and he's not. He's absolutely not a genius. He's deceptive, narcissistic, controlling, domineering, all of that shit, but he's not intelligent. Remember that. I fucking said it. So like I said, she fails in her attempt to kill him. He ends up taking her or trying to take her back to the hotel. He ends up giving her an address and saying, "Meet me at this room, at this time tomorrow night." That evening, she ends up going home, and this is where kind of shit hits the fan at home. The guy the married man that she's been fucking throughout the movie, I forgot to mention that. And she actually has no problem fucking a married man, which is another reason I'm not real fond of this character. She gets home. The guy that she's been fucking is at her house with her daughter. She absolutely blows up. Like, who the fuck are you to come to my house and interact with my daughter just because we fuck, And she had every right to do that, in all honesty. As it turns out, it was actually Abby that called the guy to come over because obviously Abby's not stupid. She knows that mom has been kind of seeing this guy off and on, for however long. So she ends up calling, thinking he might be able to talk some sense into her. Like I said, at this point, Maggie has just been so erratic and not telling her daughter any of what's actually happening, basically lying to her face throughout this entire movie. And this scene, it basically just blows up. She blows up at the guy. She tells Abby to go upstairs to her room. She proceeds to spend the next few minutes berating this guy, telling him, "You have no fucking right to interject yourself into my life." And then the guy admits that he loves her. He's like, "Well, I'm in love with you." What a shitty fucking time for a guy to say, "I'm in love with you." This woman's having a mental fucking breakdown in front of him. I don't know if he's such a fucking chivalrous knight in armor that he actually thought that would make her happy, that suddenly she would be like, "Oh, thank you." I mean, what a fucking moron this guy is. Just more characters in this movie for me to fucking hate. So like I said, after this blow up, she kicks the guy out. She ends up having another conversation with her daughter where her daughter basically says, "I'm out of here. And, I turn 18 in a couple of days and I'm literally leaving and you're never going to see me again." Obviously, she pleads with her daughter, "Please don't leave. After tonight, there'll be no more problems, blah, blah, blah." Well, actually, she said that the night before, the night before her failed assassination attempt, blah, blah, blah. So what ends up happening is mom ends up going out one more time to go and confront David. She ends up going to his hotel room where he asked her to meet him. And they start talking again and again, David. Oh, by the way, I skipped all the kindnesses. God damn it. Let me go back a little bit because this is important, because this is one of the things that was frustrating me throughout this fucking movie. After her and David had their interaction at the park, David basically, I don't know, kind of forced her to perform more of her kindnesses. And the first one that he has her do is walk to work barefoot every day. He says you have to walk to work barefoot, no shoes, no socks. And she does it 3 fucking times. And every single time I see her walking barefoot, I want to leap into the fucking television and slap the shit out of her for actually doing what this guy says. Not going to the police. She did go to the police once. I did forget to mention that. She did go to the police. Unfortunately, she went to the police before David had actually done anything. Like, he hadn't threatened her with anything yet. So the police couldn't really do anything because David didn't do anything wrong. But at this point, it's like you've already had a, armed weapon interaction with him. He's already threatened, or at least implied that he's threatening Abby once again, with running her off her bike, blah, blah, blah. Just more shit. Anyway, the next kindness that she has to perform, he says to assume the position in the park all night from midnight to 8 a.m. Basically assume the position all night. And what the position is we end up seeing her. Obviously, it sounds sexual when you hear that, assume the position. But what it actually is she's actually kneeling. She's on her knees, leaning forward, and she has both her arms behind her back, but they're outstretched straight out. Almost like she's getting arrested. I don't know if you've ever seen like a perp getting handcuffed while he's kneeling on the ground. This is kind of what it looked like. She's on the ground. I'm sorry, she wasn't kneeling. She was actually up on the balls of her feet. So even more torturous, obviously. And then nothing happens. Like, she just does that for the entire evening, and the next day happens like nothing. It's like, what are the point? I understand what the point of these kindnesses are, but it's like, it's just a power play. What's that? It's a power play. Absolutely. That's fine. I understand that. But like I said, everything that she's been doing this movie, I'm not gonna forgive her. I'm not gonna say that it's mental health. Yes, this is a broken woman with a broken mind. I fully understand that and appreciate that. But I am just so pissed off with every decision she makes in this movie, considering that she's of the belief that this man ate her child. I keep saying that. He ate her child. And she let him get away with it. I'm sorry, folks. I'm going to keep saying that because I just can't fathom how this character allows these kind of things to persist. You know what I mean? And I know Mike's going to talk about, she's broken and everything else. And I appreciate that. I do. I just don't agree with it. I'm not saying that she's of her right mind by any stretch of the imagination. I agree with Mike that there's something wrong with her, but not to the level of just the ridiculous decisions that she makes throughout this movie. She's so worried about her daughter's safety, yet she's still going to perform these kindnesses for this man, knowing where these kindnesses will lead. Do you want him to eat your 18-year-old daughter now? Is that it? This is what I mean. That is the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So, sorry, folks. I don't mean to yell at you. I love you, folks. I just hate this movie. Anyway, okay, where were we? We have the gun. Oh yeah, we're at the finale. She goes to visit David at the motel room. While she's there, David continues his story of, oh, Ben is very much alive and he's inside of my stomach. Here, put your hand on my belly. Or no, he actually grabs her forcefully by the hair, grabs her hair and puts her head next to his belly. And we see how she's struggling, but then after a second, she stops struggling, and it's almost like she actually hears something. She actually starts to cry, and she's like, and you can see in her eyes that she's actually starting to buy into this story that David has been feeding her for so long. But the swerve...
Well, I think she's always bought into it. I think that's part of the point. She's always bought into it.
No, because she said multiple times in the movie, Ben is dead. She said it.
No, that's her trying to snap back into reality, but she can't quite do it. And I think in a roundabout way, that's what the movie's saying is because of all that went on is she's trying to do her best to lead a normal life, but this has never escaped her fully, and things will trigger it to come back like this. Why should be? Because if she was in a in a normal place mentally, obviously she would never believe that kind of bullshit, but she can't not believe it. That's the problem.
Yes, yeah, I don't know. The fact that she said it more than one time in the movie that she believes Ben is dead. She said flat out, "You killed my son." She flat out said it. So she said it to him even. So I don't know. I'm not going to cut her as much slack here. I'm not going to allow her to go back and forth and just chalk it up to mental health. I'm just not going to do that. So anyway, once Maggie starts to come to terms, or at least start to believe David's story, she rolls up one of her sleeves and she pulls out a knife. And she starts to say, well, Ben needs his mother. He doesn't need his father. He needs his mother. I need to feed him. He's not being fed properly, blah, blah, blah. I think that she's just fucking around with them. I'm thinking that she solidly believes that Ben is dead, but that she's about to do something fucked up to him. But as the scene goes along, I do start to actually believe that she is buying into David's story, because what ends up happening is they end up getting into a knife fight. She ends up slicing him a little bit on the neck. He's able to disarm her and put the knife in her back, kind of in her shoulder, kind of like upper shoulder. And then they're both on the ground bleeding, kind of, catching their breath, if you will. And then out of nowhere, she rolls up one of her pant legs and pulls out another fucking knife that she had on her, continues to attack David. Finally, she is able to subdue David, and she does exactly what you think she's about to do, folks. She cuts into David's midsection and starts just pulling out all of his insides, intestines, stomach, kidneys, all of it is just strewn on the floor. And for a second, she's just standing there in silence. There's nothing inside of him. She pulled out all his organs and there's nothing in there. But then suddenly she looks again and she sees, and this is the what the fuck moment of the movie, my friends. There is a fucking living baby inside of this orifice that she just cut into David. She pulls the baby out of David's carcass. We see the intestines and everything else all over the floor, and we see her just leave the room, taking her child with her. Then we get an epitaph scene, which I personally don't think actually happened, but we'll talk about that here in a little bit. We see her in a hospital bed, though this is like no hospital I've ever seen, because it's the whitest, cleanest room I've ever seen in my life. It's probably not a hospital room, but it was so white and clean. It was so fucking bright. It almost hurt my eyes. And she's sitting there with her child, holding baby Ben in her arms. And then suddenly Abby shows up. Abby, who has already left town, shows up in her room and then takes the baby and holds Ben, the child. Again, this makes no fucking sense. Like, am I supposed to believe that Abby came back to town and sees her mother with a new child and doesn't question where this baby came from? And God forbid she get the explanation. No. I totally understand. Like I said, the fact that this movie, that this final scene is all white, makes me feel like it's a dream sequence. It's a post-death, scene, kind of like a Jacob's Ladder situation. I don't know. It just didn't feel like it was real. Personally, here's my take on the movie. I think David was real. I think David was actually there in her city. I think she actually did kill him. But then because we have that pause after she pulls out all his organs, there's a pause of silence. I think that when she pulls out all of his organs and doesn't see a baby in there, her mind just has its final snap. Just, she's gone forever at this point. And then that's when she sees the child in there. I think that's where the unreliable narrator stuff comes in. Personally, I think she just killed David because he's an idiot. But obviously, she's feeling like she now is reunited with her baby, her 22-year-old baby, if I have to reiterate that. And then that's it. Our movie ends. Our movie ends with this, ideal white scene with Abby holding Ben, and then Margaret just kind of staring into the camera while the camera slowly zooms in on her. And that's our movie. That is Resurrection 2022.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
man.
for that final scene for me, I think we're all in agreement that it's obviously her envisioning something that's not actually happening.
Yeah.
But what really punches it home and is as that scene's kind of closing and they start zooming in on her face, she goes from a smile slowly to back to looking in horror. So she's waking up from that delusion. And when she wakes up from that, or as she's waking up from the delusion, she realizes, no, my daughter is gone. There is no baby. I'm still fucked up in the head. And this trauma shit will be living on. Because if my theory is correct and David was really not really there in the modern time, then there's no reason that he can't be reconjured up if something triggers it, right? Because obviously her reaction to the coworker when he was like trying to say, hey, here's the number of like I don't even know if he said psychiatrist, but I think he was implying,
Yeah, he did.
You know.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, and if she's not, you know, it doesn't seem like she's at this time open to that option. Yeah. So it's just going to keep living on. It's almost kind of like a Babadook ending where her delusion never went away, but the mom just kind of found a way to compartmentalize that darkness, where this one she's not really even compartmentalizing it. She's just fucking gonna live on with it because she's not really doing anything to, you know, I guess she's in such a dark place that she can't, like, she just is almost mentally crippled.
Assuming she's living at all. Like I said, the fact that last scene looks so white, it almost made me feel, you know, like it's a post-death scene. Like maybe after she killed David, she couldn't come to terms with the fact that the baby wasn't inside of him and she jumped out the window. I don't know. I'm plugging in.
I would go, to me, I would go along with that because the whole white tinge to the scene, to me, that part of that would indicate like the person's actually dead. The reason why I went the other direction is because if she was dead and she was just envisioning this happy scenario, I don't see any reason for her facial expression to go from smiling to like right back to like terror almost.
I don't know.
So to me, that's almost her snapping out of a delusion that everything was good and happy because I got the baby back from David and all that, you know.
I mean, the other thing I was thinking too is that maybe that was a mental facility. Like maybe mom just finally went off the edge and they committed her. It still doesn't make sense that the baby's there and the daughter's there. But again, you know, I'll concede that a broken mind could plug that in there. But it's just a lot of the stuff that she does in this movie, even for someone with a warped mind, it just seems so out there. And I don't know. It's just really hard for me to get behind it. Like I said, I've seen movies. We've all seen lots of movies where people go off the deep end. And 99% of the time, it makes 100% sense to me. And to this movie just made no sense. Like, what is and I understand movies like, I usually like movies like this that are left up to the viewer's interpretation. Like, did this actually happen? Is it all unreliable narrator? You know, blah, blah, blah. Is it Jacob's Ladder? Maybe she's been dead the whole time and she's just dreaming this whole thing. I don't know. But with this particular movie, I disliked the journey so much that I didn't care about the end, and I didn't care about the characters. I didn't care about the culmination of this story, how it ended, how the people in the movie kind of move on from this at the end. You know, I didn't care because it's just how frustrating a watch this movie was. So, like I said, I'm chalking this up to another Mother and Greta situation where I'm just frustrated beginning to end. Like, nothing about this movie made me smile other than the ridiculousness of David's story of I ate our son and he's still alive inside of me. Like, that's about the only thing that made me crack a smile in this movie. And it's probably the one thing that shouldn't have made me crack a smile. So, yeah.
It's a lot to digest on one watch, that's for sure. So I'll look forward to your second viewing thoughts on the next No More Room in Hell, right?
Yeah, don't hold your breath.
All right, cool. Don, did you have anything you wanted to add before we close this one out?
Fuck this bitch.
I mean, Okay.
I
mean, did
took
you
a
have
lot of
any
hate in the
theories?
episode.
any theories about what was going on, or
I
hadn't
couldn't
given
be
it much
asked
thought?
to care.
See, and that's where I am too. I have to care about these characters to come up, with a viable, explanation of what I just watched. But since I don't give a rat's ass about anyone in this movie, I'm very okay walking away from it and never thinking about it again. And that's unfortunate because again,
I feel like the daughter really didn't do anything that wrong, though. She was just
no,
being an
look, I
18-year-old
said that
daughter.
earlier. I said that earlier that there's no reason for me to dislike the daughter because she doesn't really do anything hateable in the movie. In fact, I agree with everything she does in this movie. Her mother's neurotic, and she doesn't understand why because her mother's not sharing information. So of course she's just going to say, "Oh, mom's having an episode," because she doesn't know what's going on. Maybe if mom would have confided in her sooner, maybe this whole movie would have taken a whole nother path. Hell, maybe they could have killed them as mother and daughter. How cool would that have been? I don't know. It's just, ultimately David did kill Abby's half brother. Abby has a half brother that she didn't know about, and David ate him. So at the very least, there should be some emotion behind that. Assuming she never told the story, that is.
I forgot to bring it up earlier. Just like an observation, nothing that's going to further our debate on everything going on. But I did kind of laugh, and I think it was like not meant to be a part to laugh at. But after Rebecca Hall, or Maggie tells her relationship story to the coworker, I love the coworker's reaction. It's almost like confusion, like, why are you telling? Is this like some type of test or what? Because if this is true, that's messed up. And she's almost like, why the hell are you telling me? And then Rebecca Hall's character almost kind of acknowledges, like, oh shit, like maybe I shouldn't have gone into all that with a freaking subordinate.
Yeah, no, it's valid. I mean, hell, you shouldn't go into a story that long with any human being.
Yeah,
Even
I mean, and then I
care about. Give us the short version.
Well, yeah, and then when I was thinking back on it, I was like, that's part of the problem is she's talking to this with her coworker when she should be seeing a psychiatrist. Like, hey, Maggie, that's probably one of the issues. Like,
this is what I'm talking about with the decision making in this movie. There are so many different paths that Maggie could have gone down, and I just feel like she picked the wrong path at every fork. Every fork in the road, she took the wrong path. And granted, I know I'm saying this, from the position of a movie viewer watching this in the comfort of his home. As I've already said, I'm not a parent, so I can't really, I'd like to think I'd know what I would do. But, the fact that I am a petty, vindictive person, yeah, somebody fucks with my family, I kill you on sight. And, I know Mike, she's not of her right mind, blah, blah, blah. I understand all of this. That doesn't change the fact that I did not enjoy this movie. That's pretty much the tall and the short. I didn't enjoy this, so that's pretty much it.
I think people know by now after we kind of went through the movie as close as we could based on one watch. The only final thing I would say is, leaning another one little piece why I'm leaning towards David being, or the present day David being conjured up by her, is just the title of the movie itself, Resurrection. I kind of feel like it's her resurrecting this shit in her head, and she can't get away from it. She can't put it in the past. Like she can't properly deal with what happened, and it's her resurrecting all this in her in the present time.
Well,
like I said, it's by no means rock steady, because there's probably people that could comb over the movie and be like, well, then what about this? It's just me trying to figure out. Anyways, so that's Resurrection, probably one of our most spirited conversations, because it's weird. Even on one watch, I just happen to remember it more. I don't know. Maybe what I think it is. It's just because I liked watching Rebecca Hall and Tim Roth so much that, like, I just, regardless of like the overall movie, just like anytime they were in scenes together, it's like I just enjoyed how they played off each other, just the skill, the craftsmanship of the acting. So maybe it just made me pay super attention to like dialogue and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I mean, I spoke to that. Like I said the performances are great. On a technical aspect, this movie's almost flawless. There's not really anything wrong with it in that aspect. All I question is the storytelling. I hate the story. I hate the way it was presented to us. I hate the way the hour and 45 minutes that I spent with this story kind of progressed. I can't, outside of the technical aspects of this movie, I can't think of anything positive to say about it. Like, I can't think of anything to say that I like, oh, I like this scene or I like that scene. There's literally not a scene in this movie that I liked. I did say that the ending was decent, but I won't go so far as to say I liked it, quote unquote. It helped the overall rating of the movie. Whether it happened or not, just the mere fact that we got the visuals there, it kind of made up for a little bit of the film. But I don't know, a 2-minute scene is not going to make up for the other hour and 43 minutes of frustration that I felt. I just, like I said, I want to like every movie that I watch, but if you're going to frustrate me at every fucking turn, I'm not going to enjoy the movie. That's just the way I am. And I was 100% sober for this movie too. I do want to point that out. 100% sober. I had, nothing inside of me, so I'm not clouded. My judgment is not clouded in any way. It just didn't work for me. That's all. Hopefully you guys will like it more than I did. I genuinely hope you like it more than I did. I'm glad Mike liked it. I do. It may sound like we've been going back and forth this episode. I'm jealous that he liked it because I want to like every horror movie I watch, but obviously that's never going to happen. So, movies like this are going to come out that some people think are brilliant and other people think are stupid. And ultimately, neither one is wrong. It's just a personal opinion.
All right. Well, I think that's going to wrap up our discussion on Resurrection in this episode of Fresh Cuts. But before we get out of here, Venom, can you direct people to things you find less frustrating than this movie, as in other places they can hear you?
All right. So the main show, No More Room in Hell, episode 47, is currently available. We look at a couple of classic haunted house movies, actually 2 of my favorite haunted house movies. 1959's The House on Haunted Hill and 1963's The Haunting, which is, spoiler alert, my favorite haunted house movie of all time. So I'm sure you already know what I'm going to say about it, but tune in and find out what Mike and Derek thought as well. That's episode 47, currently available. No More Room in Hell presents Creature Comforts. Episode 11 has been available for a couple of weeks. We looked at the latest genre release, Phil Tippett's Mad God, currently streaming on Shudder. Check out that episode. And then I think that's actually all I have. It's been a pretty slow couple of weeks. I haven't done any guest spots. I know Don will have something to announce that involves me. Yay! But that's it for me.
All right. On over to Don. What do you got for us, Don?
Yeah. So I'll announce what Venom alluded to is he was the guest on my latest episode of the Horror Countdown. We looked at, you guessed it, Spanish language horror.
Claro que sí.
Yeah. Fantastic conversation there. We had a lot of fun. Listening back to it, it was actually one of the few times I actually got caught up in the conversation and actually forgot to edit. Not that there was much editing to be done anyway, but yeah, it was a fun time, and just listening back, editing it was a blast. So yeah, go ahead and check that one out. You can find it on pretty much all the platforms. Go ahead and give it a listen. And I do have a little bit more info on my guest spot on the Nightclub podcast. It's going to be a tad bit late, but for Shark Week, we're doing Sharknado. Yeah, I really wanted. So yeah, I tried to get him in on that one, but I was supposed to have recorded it last week, but there was a little bit of issues with some of the guest hosts. There's 3 people on the show, so a couple of them had issues, so we had to push it back a week. So we're going to be recording that this week. Not sure when it's going to be released because of the delay, and it's my first time working with them, so I don't know their production schedule and how fast they get stuff out. But I'll definitely keep you informed. And I did a surprise spur of the moment thing with NFW and for Shark Week, of course. And joined them for 47 Meters Down Uncaged. So, yeah, that was a fun time getting back with them and talking with Nudie, Suzanne, Willis, and the gang. So, yeah, been a while because I don't think they did Shirk Week last year because of the pandemic, but got back with them together to do that. And I'm supposed to be joining them for, I think they said they were going to do either Great White or the Requin. I don't remember.
Ooh.
Yeah, Nudie messaged me actually. Oh, it is the Requin. Nice.
Nice.
Yeah, that was a fun time. I remember that one pretty well from earlier this year. So, yeah, he said he was going to decide between the two last week, and apparently he sent it to me while we were recording the show. So, yeah, I wasn't really paying attention. So, yeah, we're going to be doing Requin next on NFW. So, yeah, I guess that's all for me.
Yeah, folks, make sure check out that episode of the Horror Countdown with me and Don. Me and Don have very different top tens. You see how one of us is more of a supporter of the classic Spanish horror, and another one of us is a supporter of the more modern horror, Spanish horror films. So I won't give away who's who, but yeah, check out the episode. You get a lot of. It's not like we all have the same selections. Very different lists between us, and I thought that was pretty cool. So yeah, check it out.
Yeah, like I said, I think we had two films crossover, and then one of your picks was one of my honorable mentions, and I think one of mine was your honorable mention. So, yeah, a lot of fun, and yeah, one of my favorite episodes that we hit that we've done. So,
Don't make me cry.
Cool. All right. And as far as I go, Venom already mentioned No More Room in Hell. The latest episode is recorded, and I'm happy to say it will be uploaded probably momentarily after this recording is done. I actually had it all set, and it was just a matter of did I have time to post it before or not. So that should be up. If you're listening to this episode, that is, you should already have access to number 47. And then I have another episode of Watch This Movie, Mike. That should be ready to go probably about halfway through this week. And then what else do I got? I think that's it. Me and Venom still got something in the works. Mm-hmm. Venom's driving that vehicle, but I'm going to be doing it with him. So I'll leave the announcing of it to him when he's ready. And Venom, you have I think one of your episodes of the summer series got posted today. Did you mention that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've been talking about it for the last 2 weeks because we actually recorded it a couple of weeks ago. But yeah, I guess the episodes finally are getting released this week. I was on, as usual, I participated in the summer series with the podcast Under the Stairs. This year I was on the twos, which means 1972, 1982, 1992, and 2002. The point of the summer series this year is to get the number 3 movie for every year of horror before he was doing 3 finalists. Like for the last couple of decades, for the 10s, he actually did top 3. So to even things out, we're going back and doing the number 3 for each of those years. I will also be on the 6s, 1976, 86, 96, and 06. That will be recorded sometime next week, and I would imagine will probably be released a couple of weeks after that. So yeah, check that out.
When it comes to those summer series episodes, it's really kind of depending, just because of the time zone difference. Sometimes it'll get posted where I still have like a few hours at work. Today it was like right before I got off work, so I'll listen to that first one tomorrow. But looking forward to it. It's a good group.
Oh yeah, we had a blast. We had an absolute blast. I was heartbroken by a couple of my co-hosts, but still had a good time.
Yeah, I still got one episode coming out. I'm sure it'll just align with like when it's the chronological order for that year. And but yeah, other than that, that's it for me. So next episode, I think I mentioned at the very beginning, we will be doing Bodies, now that it's on wide release this week. So if you tune in next week and it's not that, then there's got to be a really good reason why we're not doing it next week. So anyways, yeah, that's going to do it. Thanks everybody for listening. We will be back in a week with the next episode. Until then, let's say bye to listeners.
Later.
Don't do stupid shit.
Yeah, the baby's not inside your ex.